Well, hello and good morning to you, and good afternoon to you who are calling or joining us from the East Coast. Welcome. Come on in, have a seat, as I would say. Today, we're going to be discussing the results of the Fall 2021 Student Financial Wellness Survey. So please do come on in and we'll get started soon. As you're entering the room, I wanted to let you know that this webinar is recorded or will be recorded. So I will be sending out the recording as well. I also will ask for you, please, to complete a very, very short survey that will pop up after the end of the webinar. So if you can complete that for me, I'd appreciate that as well. And one last thing I want to ask, if you can, would you please just tell us what organization that you're from and your name, of course, in the chat? We would love to see who's joining us today. And I'm going to, like I said, allow for a few more people to come in. We're supposed to have a pretty good full room, so I want to give everybody an opportunity to join us. All right, I do see everybody coming in. Thank you. Well, hi, Leslie from Inspired. Good to see you here. We have University of Texas here, or Pro Concordia. Bob from Austin College, welcome. Come on in. Oh, it's flooding. I can't read everybody. I wish I could. We have Howard College here, welcome. Kent State. We have Austin Community College, University of Incarnate Ward. Come on in. We have North Central Michigan College as well. Bond College. Texas Tech. All right. And as I said, this webinar will be recorded. For those of you who are just joining us, I will be sending out the recording. So thank you so much for joining us. We will be discussing the results of the Fall 2021 Student Financial Wellness Survey. We have our own great team from Trellis, our research team, and I will be introducing each one of them here in a few seconds. So we have Blackfeet Community College in Browning, Montana. Wow. Welcome. Fort Valley State, hello. I also wanted to say again that after this webinar, there will be a brief survey. So if you would be so kind to complete that survey for us, we would greatly appreciate it. Okay, so we do have quite a bit of people here. I'm gonna go ahead and get started just for the sake of time. I want to start off by introducing our wonderful team here at Trellis, our research team. I'm gonna start off with Jeff Webster, who is the director of our research team. Jeff has worked with Trellis since 1986. And he oversees numerous, or have overseen numerous studies on student loan default, debt burden, student retention, and college affordability. Next, we have Allison Cornett. If y'all could wave, they probably can see your name anyway. Allison Cornett is a senior research analyst at Trellis. Since joining the team in 2017, Allison has led dozens of projects investigating the basic needs, security, finances, student success, and mental health of college students. She holds a master's of behavioral and community health and is certified in public health. And then last but not least, we have Carla Fletcher. Carla is a senior research analyst as well and has been with Trellis since 2005. Carla has worked on numerous projects related to loan counseling, FAFSA completion, student loan repayment patterns, and student finances and success. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our wonderful research team. Thank you again for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Teresa. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for spending time with us today. We hope that we can have a discussion. So use the chat function to share some of your comments and any questions you might have. And at the end, we'll be able to get to those and address what's on your mind. Especially interested if there's some people from schools that have participated in the survey before. So we will be talking about the Student Financial Wellness Survey. We all know that student finances are key to access, retention, and graduation. Our survey provides schools with the evidence at the appropriate breadth and depth they need to serve their students with purpose and precision. The results from this survey are also of keen interest to policymakers concerned about student debt, basic needs, equity, college affordability, and mental health, in addition to several other topics. So we will reserve time at the end, add things to the chat function. Next slide. I'll provide an overview of the survey and share some research to practice options for the school. Carla and Allison will go over the top findings from the fall 2021 Student Financial Wellness Survey. And then Carla will provide a sneak peek at the fall 2022 Student Financial Wellness Survey, some very brand new findings, and then walk us through the process to participate. And so many of you may be familiar with Trellis, but for those who aren't, next slide. Trellis is a nonprofit focused on helping people leverage the power of post-secondary education and learning to improve their quality of life and the communities where they live. Our mission is to develop and advance initiatives that grow individual economic mobility and expand community prosperity. Research has always been a part of what Trellis is about. We have over 30 years of experience conducting higher education research for both colleges and policymakers. Here in this photo, we're in the historic cash room of the US Treasury Building in Washington, DC, presenting to representatives of over 20 federal agencies. And so this just heightens the, our long tradition of looking at finances. We design and implement research strategies focused on higher education. We look at student success primarily through the lens of college affordability. And we do like to keep busy. The two best ways of keeping up with our publications is to follow us on Twitter or to join our monthly newsletter, which has original Trellis content each month. So each month, maybe next slide. Okay. And so you can scan the QR code to join our monthly newsletter with original content, or you can visit our webpage to see our library of free publications. You can also follow us on Twitter at Trellis Research. So our premier research initiative is the Student Financial Wellness Survey. Next slide. Yeah, thanks. So this is a self-reported online survey that documents the financial well-being and student success indicators of post-secondary students. The survey is free to schools to participate, and we use the data to produce customized reports to participating schools and more aggregated reports to inform policymakers. Each school receives a 40-page customized report with peer group comparisons and a technical supplement. Schools receive a one-page infographic and access to additional ad hoc reporting and presentation to their campus stakeholders. Schools have used the results to raise money for their students and their programs, to develop programs, to assess initiatives, and build a culture of caring for their students. This project has led to some of the deepest, most thoughtful engagement that I've experienced in my career. Next slide. To see the latest results that we will be talking about, you can click on the QR code here, and I'll pause a little bit to allow you to do that. And while the customized reports have become a valuable campus-specific resource, The aggregated data is equally valuable to foundations, other researchers who study and advocate for certain populations of students. And this is, again, another time to remind you about the chat. You can add your thoughts and comments there. So the survey has been increasingly relied upon. Next. So since spring 2018, we've surveyed almost 2.4 million students from 231 schools across 33 states. While the survey covers a variety of topics, the median time spent taking the survey is only 14 minutes. And so our latest report covers fall 2021. And we had our second highest response rate at 8.9%. We had over 700,000 students who were surveyed, and responses from 63,000. In the survey, we cover many different aspects of student financial wellness. We have paying for college, so how students use self-help, family support, grants, and credit to finance their education. This survey does look at student credit card use and risky borrowing. So not just credit cards and the interest associated with those, but also auto title loans and payday loans. We look at financial decision-making factors and financial behaviors. This includes financial literacy, confidence in managing finances, openness to seeking help, and financial behaviors such as paying bills on time and controlling some of their spending impulses. We look at student financial security. And so this looks at the savings that are sufficient to meet emergencies. Number of times students have run out of money and selling their belongings just to pay their bills. We do have questions related to basic need security. This includes food security, housing security, and homelessness. We look at special populations, in particular, students who are parents, and the special issues that are associated with students attending school while having parental obligations. And obviously, with a lot of the financial challenges faced by students, mental health challenges have become quite prominent among students. So we report on anxiety and depression. So with this, I'll hand it off to Carla, and she'll begin covering the content of the report, starting with how students pay for college.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. So students rely on many different resources to pay for college, and we have a series of questions in the survey to try to understand what different resources students are using. And for this, we're going to group them into 4 broader categories: self-help, family support, grants, and credit. And so we'll go through each of these, starting with the self-help. The 2 resources in this category are current employment and personal savings. A majority of the respondents in both the 2-year sector and the 4-year sector reported using both of these resources to pay for school, but only 1% of 4-year respondents and 7% of 2-year respondents used only these self-help resources to pay for school. So nearly all of the respondents in the survey needed help from other resources to afford such a large expense. So let's take a look at some of those other resources. We'll look at the family support category. These 2 resources are support from parents or family and student loans that the parents take out. Now, family support in both of these resources is more common among the 4-year respondents, as you can see that light blue bar there. Next, we'll take a look at the grants category. There are 3 resources in this category: Pell Grants or other grants, scholarships, and veterans benefits. So like with family support, the scholarships were more common in the 4-year sector. Grants were one of the most used resources in any category and nearly equally used between the 2 sectors. And then small percentages of respondents reported using veterans benefits. And lastly, we'll look at the credit resources. This category includes student loans that the student borrows, credit cards, and student loans that the parents take out, which we did see in the family support category, but this one makes sense in both categories, so we put it in both. So just like with the loans that the parents borrowed, student borrowing is much more common in the four-year sector. Also, over a quarter of respondents in both sectors reported using a credit card to pay for school. Now, sometimes students must seek out other resources when they find themselves in a financial bind, when those resources we just talked about aren't covering costs or when something unexpected happens. So some forms of public assistance were expanded during the pandemic, and they continue to be, some of them, at least for the time being, and that did help college students. Many students received various forms of public assistance in 2021, including 54% receiving federal stimulus funds. Also, 22% used medical assistance and 18% used food assistance. And then smaller percentages used unemployment, utility, housing, and childcare assistance. Now, students who reported receiving some kind of public assistance were more likely to have experienced basic needs insecurity. About half of those who received public assistance reported experiencing low or very low food security, compared to 38% of those who did not receive public assistance. And 62% of those who received public assistance had experienced housing insecurity, compared to 39% of those who had not received public assistance. Now, this slide shows even more data comparing those who received public assistance to those who did not. And there's a lot going on in this slide, but I'm going to give you the highlights. Certain students were more likely to have received public assistance. Those who received emergency aid from their institution, those who borrowed money from family or friends, those who experienced financial struggles while enrolled, first-generation students, female students, non-white students, student parents, students enrolled at community colleges, students who were older than 24 years old, and students who used Pell Grants or other grants to pay for school. So all of those students were more likely to have received public assistance than their peers, their opposite peers in each of those categories. So now I'm going to pass it over to Jeff to talk about some of the research to practice ideas related to this topic.
Thanks, Carla. In the report, we have several research to practice options for institutions that are trying to address different aspects of the issues from some of the sections that we've been reporting. So for under the Paying for College section, we've got these four main expressions of ways that schools can help their students. One is to maximize opportunities for student aid. This involves increasing FAFSA completion, sometimes through behavioral nudges. Schools can enhance their websites to be more friendly to students, and making sure that those websites are clear and accessible and written at the appropriate grade level. Schools can also target assistance and support students who have high unmet need, and they can improve coordination of student-facing interactions to make sure that those are not forming their own barrier. Also, schools can leverage public assistance programs to supplement the traditional student aid. So schools can help provide navigators to help students with public assistance program eligibility, proactively reaching out to target populations who might be eligible. Schools have used the survey findings to identify students in need and to leverage foot traffic, and they can leverage foot traffic at their resource centers, the food pantries, to communicate with the student to see if they may be eligible for public assistance programs. Schools can also moderate rising college costs by making textbooks more affordable. Many schools have tried to make transportation more affordable, working with their local transit agencies. Schools can smooth the transfer pathways, and that can help college affordability. And they can remove some of the barriers to re-enrollment, including some modest unpaid balances. The final thing here is they can advocate for additional funding. uh, they can use the empirical data from the survey to advocate for funding both for to policymakers and to members of their community. And it is important to reach out to your community. There's a lot there that are interested in your students and their well-being. Reach out to them. And then schools can also advocate for greater eligibility to SNAP. So those are just some of the things that schools can do to help moderate some of the, expenses of going to college. So I'll hand it back, I think, to Carla.
We're going to move on to our next section about student credit card use and risky borrowing. So as we saw in the prior section, many students are borrowing loans and using credit cards to pay for school, but students also sometimes turn to other sources of credit that can be riskier and potentially expensive. So this section takes a look at those forms of credit and who is using them. Looking at credit card use among students, we can see that credit card use is way more common than auto title or payday loan use. So the credit card use is that light blue line, and the auto title is that kind of green, and the payday loan is the dark one. Hispanic students had relatively low levels of use of all three forms of credit compared to their white and Black peers. And while credit card use among Black students was lower compared to white students, the payday loan use was nearly triple, at 11% for Black students compared to 4% for white students. And then looking at parenting status, students who were parents had higher rates of use of all three forms of credit compared to students without children. So we're going to look a little bit closer at credit card use in the next few slides here. The majority of students in the responding to our survey reported that they always pay their credit card bill on time if they had used a credit card in the prior year. But only 39% reported paying the full balance off each month, meaning that many students are accruing interest each month on this debt. So we're going to break down these two stats a little bit more. This slide looks at the first part of that stat by race, ethnicity, and parenting status. The white students were more likely to say that they always pay their credit card bill on time compared to Hispanic and Black students. And a higher percentage of Black students disagreed or strongly disagree that they always pay their credit card bill on time compared to the other student groups. We can also see some differences by parenting status as well, with student parents less likely to say that they always pay their credit card bill on time compared to students without children. And then looking at those who fully pay off their credit card balance each month, we see again that white students had the highest percentage of those who agree or strongly agree that they fully pay off their balance each month, while Black students had the highest percentage who disagreed or strongly disagreed with that statement. And we see a huge difference with the parenting students. About 2/3 of students with children disagreed or strongly disagree that they pay off their balance each month, compared to 39% of those without children. So these stats give us a picture of how students are using various forms of credit, but it's also important to know how students make financial decisions. So this next section takes a look at financial decision-making factors and behaviors, including confidence in managing finances and openness to seeking help. So first-generation students were significantly less likely to say that they knew how they would pay for college next semester compared to non-first-generation students. 57% of the non-first-generation students agreed or strongly agreed that they know how they'll pay for college next semester, compared to only 46% of first-generation students. So that's a large percentage of students, really in both categories, who aren't sure how they're going to be paying for the semester that's about 2 months away from the time that they're taking the survey. That is a precarious financial situation. Now, students who are struggling financially sometimes reach out to people on campus to talk about it. 45% of respondents said that they did not reach out to anyone on campus, but the remaining most often reach out to a financial aid advisor, which makes sense. But many students also reached out to faculty or staff who may not be as well versed in financial issues and therefore may not know how to help the students as well. Now, 21% of respondents said that they did not know where to find financial advice, but a majority of students, 61%, indicated that they would be interested in using financial services like financial coaching if offered by their school. Now, this is good news. It opens up the option for institutions to help their students better understand their financial situation. We do see some differences in interest in financial services by race and ethnicity. Hispanic and Black students were more likely to say that they would use financial support services compared to white students. And white students were more likely to disagree or strongly disagree that they would use those services. We also asked students about some financial behaviors in the survey. We asked students if they follow a weekly or monthly budget. And those who agreed or strongly agreed that they follow a budget were also more likely to agree or strongly agree that they always pay their bills on time. So there's a nice correlation there. 80% of those who pay their bills on time said that they follow a budget, compared to 61% of those who don't follow a budget. And then I'm going to now pass it back off to Jeff once again to talk about some practical applications of the findings from these last couple of sections.
Yeah, thanks, Carla. The past two sections there, they focus on kind of use of credit and some financial decision making. So not surprisingly, the things we have here for research practice options for schools focus mostly on financial education. So with the survey results, schools can customize their financial education to address specific needs of their student body. So we can be your guide in that process. Also, schools can promote financial education modules, workshops, webinars, and other forms of programming. This can be integrated in existing, so schools can integrate financial education into established outreach efforts. You can leverage existing touch points that you have with students. And you can make the content address the needs of your students more. So it's one thing to have a good, robust financial education program, but it's really important that the outreach is also effective so you can reach a broader group of students. Schools can also help empower students to advocate for their renter and worker rights. I know a lot of students are may not be treated well by their landlords and some of their employers. So if they're able to advocate for themselves, that can help stabilize some of their finances. Also, schools can provide financial wellness navigators to help students with financial decisions, including the use of credit. So these can be near peers, so fellow students who have some training and background in financial decision making. Schools can also leverage some experts in their community to help students develop a financial plan to graduate. And they can reach out to community members who are interested in serving college students. So leveraging that expertise. So with that, I'll hand off to Allison.
Great, thanks, Jeff. As we all know, financial challenges are common among post-secondary students. Beyond the emotional, mental, and physical tolls associated with financial insecurity, these students are especially vulnerable to academic disruptions and complications, like stopping or dropping out of college without their degree or credential. We asked our respondents to indicate if they worried about paying for school or their monthly expenses. While nearly half of students overall worried about these aspects, first-generation students and those attending four-year institutions were significantly more worried about paying for college in their monthly bills. And when examining some of these key metrics by race and ethnicity, we saw that all groups expressed some degree of financial insecurity. While Black students were most likely to have trouble getting $500 in case of an emergency and were slightly more worried about affording their current expenses, Hispanic students were most likely to worry about paying for college. We also asked our respondents to indicate how many times since January 1st, 2021, they had run out of money. While only 11% of dependent students had ran out of money, the percentage was nearly doubled among independent students, where more than 1 in 5 ran out of money in the same time frame. And when looking at the same question by race and ethnicity, we found that Black and Hispanic students were more likely to exhaust their available funds more than 3 times in that same period. And 30% of Black students reported running out of money 8 or more times, which signals that student is potentially in financial crisis. Students who struggle with basic needs like adequate nutrition, safe shelter, reliable transportation, affordable healthcare, etc., have a more difficult path to earning a degree. These struggles make it very difficult to focus on schoolwork and being academically successful, and have far-reaching impacts on other aspects of students' lives, including their mental and emotional health, social lives, and physical well-being. For our purposes, food insecurity is defined as various degrees of difficulty purchasing food for adequate balanced meals, and it can be experienced at the individual or household level. In the Student Financial Wellness Survey, we use a 6-question validated scale from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to assess food insecurity among students. And we found that 42% of respondents showed signs of food insecurity 30 days prior to the survey. To help address this crisis on college campuses, many institutions have implemented on-campus food distribution centers, like food pantries or food closets, to better assist students struggling to meet their basic needs. These pantries often provide more than food, including personal hygiene products, diapers and other items for children, assistance applying to benefit programs such as SNAP, and more. So knowing this, our team added a few questions related to food pantries to the instrument in 2021. And it's really interesting when we take a look at the students who attended a school with at least one on-campus food pantry, just over a third of those students knew of that pantry on their campus. And of the students who were not aware of this valuable resource, 42% were experiencing low or very low food security, suggesting a critical lack of awareness of this benefit among students who need this assistance the most. Students who are food insecure are also much more likely to experience housing insecurity. In fact, both of these statistics contribute to a college student poverty rate that is nearly 5 times the national average. Housing insecurity encompasses a wide range of challenges, including the inability to pay rent or their utilities, the need to move frequently, poor housing quality, overcrowding, and other issues. Our survey uses a modified housing security scale developed in coordination with the Hope Center for Community College and Justice and Dr. Rashida Crutchfield at CSU Long Beach. Using this scale, 46% of students were identified as housing insecure. And homelessness, the most extreme form of housing insecurity, is a serious obstacle to students achieving their full academic potential. According to federal student aid, the state of homelessness occurs when one lacks fixed, regular, and adequate housing. And while only 4% of students explicitly self-identified as unhoused, 15% indicated homelessness since starting college or within the 12 months before the survey through their answers to these questions. The most common expression occurred when students temporarily stayed with a relative or friend or couch surfed while looking for housing. Alarmingly, 4% were thrown out of their homes and 3% did not know where they would sleep at night. And unfortunately, college students frequently experience one or more forms of basic needs insecurity, or B&I, at a time, whether that be food insecurity, housing insecurity, or homelessness. However, basic needs security can also be fluid and change over time, meaning a student may be food secure during the fall and spring semester, but suffer very low food security in the summer. In the 2021 implementation, we saw that 59% of surveyed students experienced food insecurity, housing insecurity, or homelessness in the prior 12 months, threatening not only their mental and physical health, but their academic success. Further, we saw that 29% of students who responded to the survey were both food and housing insecure. And overall, we saw that 10%, just about 1 in 10 students, have faced all 3 forms of B&I within the past year. With nearly 3 in 5 students facing basic needs insecurities that endanger their academic potential, health, and future success, it is crucial for institutions, communities, and policymakers to intervene and provide targeted supports. In the next section, I'm going to cover the unique circumstances that parenting students face while attending institutions of higher education. So nearly a quarter of students nationwide are raising children while in college. Parenting students often encounter significant barriers when accessing and completing college, and single parents in particular face a unique set of challenges when balancing parenting, school, and often work without the support of a partner. Parenting students often face significant costs related to childcare, basic needs, and other expenses that can put a strain on already limited financial resources. In the 2021 implementation, we found that students with children were 12 percentage points more likely to run out of money during the year compared to their childless peers. We also saw that students with children were more likely to report getting difficulties in case of an unexpected difficulties getting $500 in case of an unexpected expense. And additionally, when looking at parenting students and their usage of public assistance, students with children were more likely to utilize each type of assistance, from federal stimulus funds to housing assistance. And the greatest gaps in utilization here between parents and their childless peers were found with federal stimulus funds, medical assistance, and food assistance, including programs like SNAP and WIC. While students who are parents indicate both higher need and higher usage of public assistance, these data points suggest their full need is still not being met. Parenting students were both more likely to use a credit card and were less likely to pay off their credit card balances in full each month. In fact, only 22% of students with children paid this bill off monthly. And this brings us to our mental health section. You know, the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in heightened levels of loneliness, stress, anxiety, and depression among college students. While concerns over student mental health were prevalent in college campuses long before the onset of COVID-19, research suggests the public health crisis and its surrounding circumstances has worsened existing mental health problems. These mental health conditions can have severe consequences on students' lives, including their energy levels, cognitive ability, their relationships with friends and family, and their academic performance. And while many students struggle with mental health challenges, its negative effects may be even more severe for certain groups of students, including student parents, first-generation students, students with disabilities, students of color, and LGBTQ+ students. So in the Student Financial Wellness Survey, we use two short-form validated scales, the PHQ-2, or the Patient Health Questionnaire 2, and the GAD-2, which screens for generalized anxiety disorder. Here, our team found that mental health concerns were common among our respondents. For instance, 38%, or just under 21,000 students, were likely to have met the conditions for the diagnosis of major depressive disorder at the time they were taking the survey. And 45% indicated experiencing generalized anxiety disorder. For students to thrive and persist in college, better mental health is essential. The student mental health crisis calls for urgent action by campus, state, and federal stakeholders. Now I'm going to kick it over to Jeff to give us some more research to practice recommendations for students in crisis.
Thanks, Allison. The Student Financial Wellness Survey shows students in a variety of financial wellness situations. This last section really focused on students who are experiencing crisis. So we tried to group some of the research to practice options for institutions with a special focus on, what can you do in a crisis situation? I think one of the important things is to raise awareness of poverty and to destigmatize seeking help. Schools have, who are concerned about doing this, have offered poverty training to their staff and faculty so that they don't need to be social workers, but they need to be able to see the signs and then be able to refer students to social workers. Schools have also worked at trying to craft student communications with care. So how do you address someone in a state of crisis? Being careful with your use of language is going to be real important in that situation. Also, many schools have hired social workers or who have leveraged social workers who are in the institution to help students navigate public assistance programs, and if needed, to help them seek mental health care. So this could be helping streamline public assistance eligibility assessment, making sure students get the proper mental health supports, and to publicize the availability of these resources. Institutions have provided emergency resources and processes that prioritize rapid response and empathetic delivery. So schools have formed crisis support teams. They have made emergency aid available to students in crisis. They've developed resource centers, food pantries, those kind of resources to help students who are in the middle of a crisis. And many are providing daycare facilities. We know that students who are parents have special needs, and being able to have an affordable, accessible daycare facility can really make the difference between keeping that student enrolled or not. And many institutions have also looked at transportation barriers. For those who have low savings, these can be a car, repair away from being able to stay in school or not. So thinking carefully about transportation barriers can be important for students who are in this state of crises. And finally, just serve the whole student. Social engagement is very important, especially as they're in crisis. It's oftentimes particularly difficult in the state of pandemic that we're in, but making opportunities to encourage social engagement can be one way to reduce stress and to build bonds with their classmates and with the institution. Another part of serving the whole student is developing job success skills among the students, and in general, promote healthy life choices. Those can be important for stabilizing students who may be in an emergency situation. So with that, I'll hand it off to Carla.
We wanted to give a little bit of a sneak peek of our fall 2022 findings here in this webinar. We implement the survey each fall at campuses across the country, and the data we've been looking at during this webinar is from the fall of 2021, but we also ran the survey this past fall in 2022. And we're still analyzing the results, but we wanted to pull a few out for a little sneak peek here. So we're always interested in the $500 question that Allison talked about a little bit in her sections, which asks if the student would have trouble getting $500 in cash or credit in case of an emergency in the next month. In 2022, 60% of respondents said that they would have trouble getting that amount of money. And then we asked everyone what resource they would turn to, hypothetically, if they had to get that $500 for an expense. And the answer options include an option to say that there is no resource they could turn to. And 17% of students picked that option, meaning that they felt like they would not be able to get that amount of money from any resource in that time frame. That could be a medical bill or a car repair that could lead to a student in a situation having to potentially drop out of school. We also asked students who had borrowed about their confidence level that some or all of their student loans will be forgiven at some point. And with all the talk, here lately, the last year, maybe or so, of student loan forgiveness, I thought this might be an interesting one to look at. But we see that only 15% of respondents had any confidence that some or all of their loans would be forgiven at some point. The vast majority of respondents with student loans did not seem confident that any forgiveness would ever happen. So despite this lack of confidence in potential government action, most respondents do seem to believe in the power of higher education. We added this new question in the 2022 survey, asking about basically the ROI on higher education. And 71% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed that the cost of college is a good investment for their financial future. Only 7% disagreed or strongly disagreed with that statement. Now, you, of course, would expect that people who are already in college would feel stronger about this than perhaps people who are not currently enrolled in college. But this is still heartening to see, since we know from empirical evidence that the return on investment of the cost of college is strong. And then lastly, for our sneak peek here, we added a couple of questions expanding our question set about parenting students. This one asks about the number of days of class missed in the prior semester due to the lack of childcare. About a quarter of student parents responded that they had to miss at least one day, with 5% saying they missed more than 5 days. We also asked what parenting students would do if they lost childcare, and we gave them some answer options to choose from. Over a third, 36%, said that they would need to take fewer classes or drop classes. And over a quarter, 28%, said that they would be less likely to enroll in future semesters. So that is discouraging for sure. But we do want to talk about the last part of our webinar. We've made it to the end. We want to talk about participating in future implementations of the wellness survey. So we hope that you found the results interesting and may consider looking into participation. Each school receives a number of things. This includes a customized report that highlights summary findings from each school's respondents alongside a comparison group made up of the participating schools in that same sector. We also provide a technical supplement that lays out the frequencies for every question on the survey, as well as some select crosstab analyses. We also create a one-page infographic for each school that features some key findings from the survey in a nice visual presentation that's easy to share, especially with folks who may not want to read the full report. We're also available for additional ad hoc reporting on your school's results if there are particular populations or areas that you're interested in drilling down on. And we're also happy to present the findings to campus stakeholders. And everyone, of course, will be able to see our publicly released reports, summarizing all survey results in an aggregate report. And we also do briefs on special topics. I did want to talk about our data security very briefly, just so everyone knows that we take it very seriously. All of our research team members are certified in human subjects research. We also have corporate training and procedures on data security and data retention. We take data security very seriously at Trellis. Our company has decades of experience working with sensitive data. We go through IRB review at every single institution. It often ends up being waived, but we have worked on dozens of IRBs to varying degrees over the years. And so we can answer probably any question that would ever come up in an IRB review. We also will never release individual level data, even if it's de-identified, to anyone. Only summary level data will be shared outside of Trellis. Now, these are the steps to participate that institutions will complete prior to the survey launch. We ask for a letter of intent to participate, signed by a senior campus official, and we have a template of a letter that can be used. And then again, we work with institutions on the IRB approval. Institutions will provide a sample of students, including email address and some select demographics prior to the survey administration, and that's sent to Trellis using our secure file transfer system. Institutions will reach out to students. We provide institutions with a timeline and sample language that can be used to communicate with students to give them a heads up about the survey. And then marketing the survey and incentives for completion. So Trellis offers a survey-wide incentive across all participating schools, but we do encourage institutions to offer their own incentive as well. It does not need to be a large expense. It can be something like school swag or bookstore gift cards. It signals to students that their school is invested in the survey and wants them to complete it. And we find that on average, institutions that offer incentives have a response rate that is about 2 to 3 percentage points higher than institutions that don't. And then any marketing of the survey helps get the word out and encourages students to complete it. Marketing plus incentives together are a good way to get higher response rates from students. Now for our timeline, we are in active recruitment for about the first half of the year or so. We do outreach to individual schools and larger groups, and outreach like this webinar here to get the word out about the survey. Institutions can go through the steps that I just mentioned in the last slide at any point, except the data, which can't be sent until the census date in the fall. But the most active onboarding time for most institutions takes place July through September, with all steps needing to be completed by September 25th. And then we launch the survey later in October, and it will stay open for 3 weeks. Trellis handles the launch and most of the survey reminders, and that's all done through our Qualtrics system. And then after the survey is closed and the results are available, Trellis can help with presentations and convenings, conducting further analysis, and planning for future years of implementation of the survey. And the Trellis website has lots of information about the survey. The link and QR code here lead to our Get Started page that outlines the process to participate in more detail and has a form to submit your name and email address to get on our radar with questions or to sign up. And I'll give everyone just a few more seconds here in case they need to scan that. And then lastly, I'll show you our contact information for each of us, along with a digital business card that you can scan with that QR code. And we just want to thank everyone for their time today. We'd be happy to answer any questions, or as Jeff had mentioned, if there are institutions on the webinar who have participated in the survey before, any feedback on the process or how you've used the data would be really great to hear as well.
Thank you so much, Carla, Allison, and Jeff. I also wanted to say that the Student Financial Wellness Survey that Carla just spoke about is of no cost to you. So if you are interested, please just let us know. So again, that is of no cost. So Jeff, I didn't know, or Allison, if you wanted to say any final remarks. And if you do have questions, please feel free to put that in the Q&A or in the chat.
Yeah, yeah, if people have additional questions, or they can reach out to us individually, go to our website, check it out. We hope that these findings can help inform your good efforts to support your students. And it's been a great project for us. We look forward to continuing it. We'd love to have as many schools participate as possible. The more schools we can get, the more robust the comparison group can be. Yeah, so reach out to us. Happy to talk with you all. And thanks for spending your time with us today.
Yes, thank you. And if you could just stick around a little bit to take the survey, we would greatly appreciate it. We would love your feedback. And thank you. We'll give you about 7 minutes of your day back, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you.